She was just trying to get home, soaked, exhausted, invisible. He was the most dangerous man in the city, untouchable, feared by everyone. When they collided on that rain-slicked corner, he looked at her like she was the answer to a question he'd never asked. And then he said the words that would change everything. "You're mine now. Welcome back, my beautiful family and friends. If you're hooked in and you're ready to enjoy this story, click subscribe and let me know in the comments where you're watching from, because tomorrow, I will be giving you another story just as interesting as this one, and you don't want to miss it. Now let us begin." The coffee had gone cold an hour ago, but Mia Chun poured it anyway. Table 7 didn't care that the liquid was lukewarm or that her hands trembled from exhaustion. They cared that it arrived with a smile, that she pretended not to hear when the man in the cheap suit called her sweetheart, like it was her name. "Thanks, Han," he said, not looking up from his phone. She was invisible. After 6 years of waitressing, she'd perfected the art of disappearing while standing right in front of people. It was a survival skill. Smile, nod, fade into the background before they noticed the coffee stain on her apron or the fact that her shoes had holes worn through the soles. The Metro diner's fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting everything in a sickly yellow glow. It was 10:47 p.m., and Mia had been on her feet since 6 a.m. This was her second shift of the day. The morning rush at Benny's cafe across town, then straight here for the dinner and late-night crowd. She'd perfected the art of sleeping on the subway, 4-minute power naps between stops, her head against the vibrating window. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. She didn't need to check it to know it was her younger sister, Lily. "Made it back to the dorm. Thanks for the care package. Love you." Mia's chest tightened. The care package had been ramen noodles, granola bars, and the last $40 from her tip jar. Lily was a junior at Columbia, studying biochemistry, brilliant and hopeful in ways Mia had forgotten how to be. Their parents had died 3 years ago, a drunk driver on the Cross Bronx Expressway, and Mia had made a promise at their funeral. Lily would finish college. Lily would have the life their parents dreamed of, even if it meant Mia had none at all. Miss. Mia snapped back to the present. Table 12 was waving, impatient. She forced her lips into that practiced curve, grabbed her notepad, and disappeared into the roll again. By the time her shift ended at 11:30, the rain had started. Not the gentle kind that whispered against windows, but the violent kind that punished the city, turning streets into rivers and drowning out every other sound. Mia stood under the diner's awning, staring at the downpour, calculating. The subway was 6 blocks away. She had one umbrella, broken, in her locker. Her jacket was more holes than fabric. She had $17 in tips and a morning shift at Benny's that started in 7 hours. She ran. The rain hit her like fists, cold and relentless. Within seconds, she was drenched, her hair plastered to her face, her shoes squelching with each step. The streets were empty, everyone with sense already home. She clutched her purse against her chest. Inside were her phone, her keys, the photo of Lily at high school graduation, and those $17 that would buy groceries tomorrow. She didn't see the corner coming, didn't see the black SUV until it was too late. Across the city, in a warehouse that didn't exist on any official map, Dante Moretti watched a man bleed. "I asked you a question, Vincent." His voice was quiet. That was the thing about Dante. He never raised his voice. He never had to. Men twice his size cowered when he whispered, because everyone knew what came after the quiet. Vincent was on his knees, hands tied behind his back, face already swelling from where Dante's second-in-command, Marco, had encouraged him to talk. Blood dripped from his split lip onto the concrete floor, each drop echoing in the vast, empty space. "I didn't steal from you, Mr. Moretti. I swear." "You swear." Dante crouched in front of him, his tailored suit somehow untouched by the violence surrounding them. His dark eyes, almost black in the dim light, studied Vincent with the detached curiosity of a scientist examining a specimen. "You swear on what exactly?" "Your life. Because that already belongs to me." Vincent's breath came in gasps. "Please. I have a family. So did the men you sold out to the Italians." Dante stood, brushing invisible dust from his sleeve. He was 34, built like someone who'd spent his youth fighting for survival and his adulthood ensuring he'd never have to fight again. His face was handsome in a severe way. Sharp jawline, dark hair always perfectly styled, a mouth that never smiled unless he was about to destroy you. He'd built an empire on fear. Started with nothing. A 12-year-old kid watching his mother die in the crossfire of his father's war, and clawed his way to the top of the East Coast's underworld. Now he controlled shipping routes, owned half the city's politicians, and had enough blood on his hands that he'd stopped counting years ago. He felt nothing about it. Feeling was weakness, and weakness got you killed. Mr. Moretti, please. Dante nodded to Marco. Make it quick. He walked away before the gunshot, already thinking about the next problem. The shipment from Miami. The new district attorney who thought he couldn't be bought. The rival family testing his borders. His life was a chess game played with human pieces, and he was always 3 moves ahead. His phone buzzed. A text from his cousin, Tony. Meeting pushed to midnight. Pier 17. Dante checked his watch, 11:20. He signaled to his driver, a silent man named Dimitri who'd been with him for a decade. They climbed into the SUV, and the warehouse disappeared behind them, as if the violence inside had never happened. The rain started as they crossed into Midtown. Dante stared out the tinted window, watching the city blur past. He owned so much of it, but possessed none of it. Every building, every street corner, every back alley deal, it was all just territory. Defense. A way to ensure no one could ever touch him again. Faster, he said quietly. I want this done. Dimitri nodded, pressing the accelerator. The SUV surged forward through the rain-slicked streets, hydroplaning slightly as it took the corner at 8th and 43rd. And that's when it happened. A figure appeared out of nowhere, running full speed through the intersection. Dimitri slammed the brakes, but the rain and momentum made the SUV fishtail. Dante was thrown forward against his seatbelt as the vehicle screeched to a stop. Silence. Just the pounding rain and Dimitri's heavy breathing. Is she? Dimitri started. But Dante was already out of the car. The woman was on the ground, on her hands and knees, her purse contents scattered across the wet pavement. She was soaked, shaking, and scrambling to grab her belongings. A phone with a cracked screen, crumpled dollar bills that the rain was trying to steal, a photograph that was already ruined. Miss, I didn't see, are you hurt? Dimitri appeared behind Dante, but Dante held up a hand. I've got it. He crouched down, and for the first time in years, Dante Moretti looked at someone without calculation, without seeing an asset or a threat. He just looked. She had dark hair, now plastered to her face, and brown eyes that were wide with shock and something else. Exhaustion so profound it seemed to radiate from her bones. Her clothes were cheap, worn, the uniform of someone who worked too many hours for too little money. She was maybe 26, maybe 30. It was hard to tell through the fatigue carved into her features. But it was her hands that caught his attention. The way they moved, desperate and precise, trying to gather everything before it was lost. Like every dollar, every item, mattered more than her own safety. I'm so sorry, she gasped, not looking at him. I was just trying to, I'm sorry. Dante picked up a photograph. 2 young women, graduation gowns, bright smiles. Is this you? She finally looked at him. Their eyes met. And something in Dante's chest, something he'd buried so deep he'd forgotten it existed, shifted. She wasn't beautiful in the way the women he usually encountered were beautiful. No designer clothes, no calculated seduction. She was real in a way that made his carefully constructed world feel like a stage set. She looked at him. Really looked. And he saw the exact moment she registered his expensive suit, the idling SUV with tinted windows, the quiet danger radiating from him. She should have been terrified. Most people were. Instead, her jaw tightened. That's my sister. Can I have it back? Not a plea. A demand, however soft. Dante found himself smiling. A real smile, not the predatory ones he used in negotiations. What's your name? Does it matter? She snatched the photo from his hand, shoved it in her purse. I'm fine. You can go. You ran into my car. Your car ran into me. She stood, wobbly but defiant. She was shorter than him by almost a foot, but somehow she didn't seem small. I need to go. I have to work in the morning. She tried to walk past him, but Dante's hand shot out, gripping her wrist. Not hard, just enough to stop her. I asked your name. Something flickered in her eyes. Fear, yes, but also anger. At the audacity. At the entitlement. At one more person in one more moment treating her like she didn't matter. Mia, she said through gritted teeth. Mia-chan. Now let go. He did. Immediately. He wasn't used to that, being moved by someone else's discomfort. But something about the way she said it, the exhausted fury in her voice, made him step back. She hurried past him, into the rain, disappearing down the street. Dante stood there, rain soaking through his suit, watching her go. Dimitri cleared his throat. "Sir?" "The meeting." But Dante wasn't thinking about the meeting. He was thinking about brown eyes that looked at him like he was just another obstacle in an already impossible day. About hands that gathered dollar bills like they were treasure. About the way she said her own name, like it was the only thing she owned. On the ground, half hidden under a storm drain, something caught the streetlight's reflection. Dante bent down and picked it up. A driver's license. Mia Chun. Address in Queens. Date of birth. March 15th, 1999. He pocketed it, ignoring Dimitri's questioning look. "The meeting can wait," Dante said quietly, climbing back into the SUV. "I want you to find out everything about Mia Chun. Where she works, where she lives, who she cares about." "Sir." Dante stared out the window, at the empty street where she'd disappeared. "I'm going to see her again." It wasn't a prediction. It was a promise. What do you think Dante saw in Mia that made him so curious? Drop your thoughts below. I'd love to hear what caught your attention about their first meeting. Mia made it to the subway station with 30 seconds to spare before the last train. Her lungs burned, her clothes clung to her like a second skin, and somewhere between 8th Avenue and the turnstile, she'd lost one of her hair ties. She collapsed into a plastic seat, shivering, and finally let herself think about what had just happened. A black SUV. Tinted windows. A man in a suit that probably cost more than her yearly rent. The way he'd looked at her. She wrapped her arms around herself, trying to generate warmth that wouldn't come. She should have been more careful. Should have looked before crossing. But careful required energy she didn't have. Attention she'd already spent on 8 hours of smile and serve and don't complain. Her phone buzzed. Another text from Lily. "You okay?" "You usually text back by now." Mia's fingers hovered over the keyboard. What was she supposed to say? Almost got hit by a car. Met a man who looked at me like I was something he wanted to own. I'm fine. Just tired. Long shift. Love you. Go to sleep. She sent it and leaned her head against the scratched subway window, watching the tunnel darkness blur past. The train was nearly empty. Just her, a homeless man sleeping across 3 seats, and a nurse still in scrubs, eyes closed, exhausted in that universal way that transcended language or circumstance. Mia's hand went to her purse, mentally cataloging what she'd managed to save from the street. Phone, cracked but functional. Keys. $17 in tips, now wet but salvageable. The photo of Lily, ruined beyond repair. Her wallet. Her stomach dropped. Her wallet. She tore through her purse, hands shaking, dumping everything onto the seat beside her. Lipstick. Receipts. A granola bar she'd been saving for tomorrow's breakfast. But no wallet. No driver's license. No debit card. No, 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 she whispered, frantically rechecking every pocket, every corner. Please. It was gone. Left behind on that rain-soaked intersection, or washed down a storm drain. Or picked up by him. The man in the expensive suit. The one who'd asked her name like he had a right to it. Mia's breathing quickened. Her license had her address on it. Her full name. Date of birth. Everything someone would need to find her if they wanted to. And something about the way he'd watched her leave, calculating, possessive, made her certain that he wanted to. Dante didn't go to the meeting at Pier 17. Instead, he sat in his penthouse apartment overlooking Central Park, Mia Chen's driver's license on the glass coffee table in front of him, and did something he hadn't done in years. He wondered what made someone work themselves to exhaustion for $17. Wondered what put that specific kind of defeat in someone's eyes. Not the defeat of giving up, but the defeat of knowing you'd keep fighting anyway because there was no other choice. Wondered why, when she'd looked at him, he'd felt seen in a way that had nothing to do with fear or respect or calculation. Marco appeared in the doorway, tablet in hand. Got the information you wanted. And Mia Chun, 26. Works 3 jobs. Morning shift at Benny's Cafe in Brooklyn, dinner shift at Metro Diner in Midtown, weekend catering gigs when she can get them. Lives in a studio apartment in Queens, rent 2 months behind. Has a younger sister, Lily Chun, junior at Columbia on a partial scholarship. Marco scrolled through his notes. Parents died 3 years ago. Car accident. Mia dropped out of NYU to support the sister. No debt beyond the rent. No criminal record. No relationships to speak of. He paused. She's nobody, boss. Clean as they come. Nobody. The words settled in Dante's chest like a stone. That's what the world saw. Someone so invisible that even basic survival required 3 jobs and $17 tips. But Dante had built an empire on seeing what others missed, on recognizing value in the overlooked, leverage in the desperate, opportunity in the invisible. And Mia Chun, exhausted and defiant in the rain, was not nobody. Where does she work tomorrow? Morning shift at Benny's. Starts at 6. Dante checked his watch. 12:47 a.m. In less than 6 hours, she'd be back on her feet, pouring coffee, disappearing into the background while the world took and took and took. Clear my schedule for the morning, he said quietly. Marco hesitated. Boss, we have the... I said clear it. There was a long pause. Marco knew better than to question, but the confusion was evident in his silence. Dante Moretti didn't chase women. Women came to him, eager and calculated, looking for protection or status or the thrill of danger. He took what he wanted and moved on, emotionless transactions that left no mark on either party. He didn't rearrange his empire for a waitress who'd run into his car. But that's exactly what he was doing. Understood, Marco said finally and left. Dante picked up the driver's license again, studying the photograph. Mia looked younger in it, less hollowed out by exhaustion. There was something almost hopeful in her expression, like she'd still believed the world might be kind. He wondered when that had died, and he wondered, in a distant clinical way, what it would take to bring it back. Not because he cared. Dante Moretti didn't care about anything except power and survival, but because something about her resistance, her refusal to cower, had triggered an instinct he thought he'd killed years ago. The instinct to possess something not out of necessity, but out of want. Mia didn't sleep. She lay in her studio apartment, really just a converted closet with a hot plate and a bathroom the size of a phone booth, staring at the water-stained ceiling, trying to calculate the damage. Replacing her license, $17. Replacing her debit card. Free, but 3 to 5 business days without access to her account, which meant she'd have to survive on the cash in her tip jar. $63.42. Groceries for the week, $40. Subway fare, $15. That left $8.42 for emergencies. Her sister's tuition payment was due in 2 weeks. She was still $340 short. The math didn't work. It never worked. But Mia had become an expert at making impossible numbers somehow stretch, at finding ways to survive that defied logic and probability. At 4:30 a.m., she gave up on sleep and got ready for her shift at Benny's. She put on her spare uniform, also stained but less obviously, and pulled her hair back with a rubber band since she'd lost her hair tie. Her reflection in the bathroom mirror looked like a stranger's. When had the circles under her eyes become permanent? When had her cheekbones gotten so sharp from skipped meals? When had she stopped recognizing herself? She shook off the thought. Grief was a luxury, and she'd spent her allocation 3 years ago at her parents' funeral. Now there was only forward motion, only the next shift and the next bill and the next sacrifice. Only Lily's future, bright and untouchable, the one thing Mia had managed to protect. She grabbed her keys and headed for the subway, trying not to think about the man with dark eyes who'd looked at her like she was a puzzle he intended to solve. Benny's Cafe was a hole-in-the-wall place in Brooklyn that served burnt coffee and mediocre breakfast to construction workers and insomniacs. Mia had worked there for 4 years, long enough that Benny, a 60-year-old Greek immigrant with a thick accent and a thicker mustache, trusted her to open alone. She unlocked the door at 5:45, flipped on the lights, and started the morning routine. Coffee. Toast. Prep the eggs. Check the register. The familiar motions were meditative, her body moving on autopilot while her mind drifted. She was elbow-deep in dishwater when the bell above the door chimed. "We open at 6, she called without turning around. "Give me 2 minutes. "I can wait." Mia froze. That voice, quiet, controlled, with an edge that suggested violence, was always 1 word away. She turned slowly, water dripping from her hands. The man from last night stood in the doorway of Benny's Cafe, looking completely out of place in his tailored charcoal suit. He was even more imposing in the harsh fluorescent light, tall, broad-shouldered, with the kind of presence that made the small space feel smaller. and he was staring at her with that same unsettling intensity. "You," Mia breathed. "Me." He stepped inside, closing the door behind him. The bell chimed again, cheerful and oblivious to the tension crackling between them. "You left something behind last night." He pulled her wallet from his jacket pocket and set it on the counter between them. Mia's heart hammered. Relief and terror fought for dominance. You came all the way here to return that. Among other things." "What other things?" Dante tilted his head slightly, studying her the way a collector might study a rare artifact. "To see if you were real. Real. If you really work 3 jobs. If you really look that exhausted every day. If you really run through the rain because you can't afford an umbrella that works." He moved closer to the counter, and Mia instinctively stepped back. "Turns out you do." The pieces clicked into place. The specificity of his knowledge. The fact that he'd known exactly where to find her. "You had me investigated." "I did." No apology. No excuse. Just simple acknowledgement. Mia's hands curled into fists. "Who the hell do you think you are?" "Someone who knows you're 2 months behind on rent. Someone who knows your sister's tuition is due in 2 weeks and you're $340 short. Someone who knows you haven't eaten a real meal in 4 days because you gave your food budget to Lily for textbooks." He leaned against the counter, casual, like they were discussing the weather. "I'm someone who can make all of those problems disappear." The words hung between them, heavy with implication. Mia's throat tightened. "In exchange for what?" "Dinner." She blinked. "What?" "Have dinner with me. Tonight. 1 meal. If you still want nothing to do with me afterward, I'll disappear. But your sister's tuition gets paid either way." He pushed off the counter, moving toward the door. "Think about it. I'll send a car at 7. "I didn't say yes. Your address is 2247, Queens Boulevard, apartment 3B. The car will be there at 7. He paused at the door, glancing back. "And Mia, you should say yes. Because whatever you think I am, whatever I make you feel." His eyes locked onto hers, dark and absolute. "You felt something last night when we met. Curiosity. Recognition. Something that told you I see you when everyone else looks right through you." The door chimed as he left. Mia stood frozen, her heart racing, her mind spinning. He was right. God help her, he was right. For the first time in 3 years, someone had looked at her and seen past the uniform, past the exhaustion, past the invisibility she'd wrapped around herself like armor. And that terrified her more than anything else. Here's the question that's probably on your mind. Should Mia trust him? Or is this the beginning of something dangerous? What would you do in her position? Let me know in the comments. Mia didn't go to dinner. At 6:45 p.m., she stood in her tiny apartment, still in her work clothes from the Metro diner, staring at the black sedan idling outside her building. Through her 3rd-floor window, she could see the driver, a large man in a dark suit, checking his watch. Her phone buzzed. An unknown number. "The car is waiting." She didn't respond, didn't move, just watched as minutes ticked by and the driver made a call, his expression unreadable from this distance. At 7:15, the sedan pulled away. Mia released a breath she didn't know she'd been holding and collapsed onto her futon. Her hands were shaking. From fear or relief or something else entirely, she couldn't tell. He'd offered to pay Lily's tuition. $340 that stood between her sister's dreams and disaster. $340 that Mia had been losing sleep over, working extra shifts for, skipping meals to save. And she'd just watched it drive away. Because accepting it meant accepting him. His attention. His control. Whatever game he was playing that she didn't understand the rules to. Her phone buzzed again. "I respect your decision. But the offer stands. When you're ready. Not if. When." The presumption made her jaw clench. Like her resistance was just a temporary obstacle. A challenge to be overcome rather than a boundary to be respected. Mia threw her phone onto the futon and forced herself to focus on what she could control. Shower. Meal prep for tomorrow. Exactly 4 hours of sleep before her morning shift at Benny's. She didn't think about dark eyes that saw too much. She didn't think about the quiet certainty in his voice when he said she'd felt something. She especially didn't think about the fact that he was right. Dante read the message from Dimitri. She didn't come down, and felt something unfamiliar stir in his chest. Surprise. Women didn't turn him down. Not because he was irresistible, but because he offered things they wanted more than their pride. Money, protection, status, escape. He'd built his understanding of human nature on that simple truth. Everyone had a price, you just had to find it. But Mia Chen had looked at $340 worth of desperation and chosen to stay in her cramped apartment, working herself to death. She said no, Marco said from across Dante's office, barely concealing his amusement. When's the last time that happened? It hasn't. Dante swirled the whiskey in his glass, studying the amber liquid like it held answers. Which means I miscalculated. Maybe she's not interested. She's interested. Dante had seen it in her eyes at the cafe that morning. The flash of something that wasn't quite fear, wasn't quite attraction, but lived in the dangerous space between. She's just more stubborn than I expected. So what's the play? Dante set down his glass. I wait. Let her think she won. Let her go back to her impossible routine, her 3 jobs, her slow collapse under the weight of it all. He stood, moving to the floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the city. And then I'll be there when she needs help again. Because she will. It wasn't cruelty. It was patience. Dante had learned long ago that the best way to acquire something wasn't to chase it. It was to make it come to you. In the meantime, he continued, I want eyes on her. Not intrusive. Just present. Make sure she's safe. Marco raised an eyebrow. You're assigning protection detail to a waitress? I'm protecting an investment. But even as Dante said it, he knew it wasn't quite true. Because investments didn't make you check your phone every 30 minutes hoping for a response. Investments didn't occupy your thoughts during negotiations that required your full attention. Investments didn't make you feel. And Dante Moretti didn't feel. Couldn't afford to. Feeling was the crack in the armor that let people in. And people always destroyed you from the inside. But Mia Chun, with her exhausted defiance and her stubborn pride, had already started burrowing under his skin. For 3 days, Mia didn't hear from him. She told herself it was relief. That he'd gotten bored, moved on to easier targets, whatever rich men did when their egos got bruised. But she noticed things. The man in the coffee shop across from Benny's who sat in the corner booth for hours, never finishing his drink. The black sedan that seemed to be on the same streets she walked, always 2 blocks behind. The way her landlord suddenly stopped threatening eviction, even though she still hadn't paid. He was everywhere and nowhere, present without being seen. It should have terrified her. Instead, it made her angry. On the 4th day, Mia finished her shift at Metro Diner at 11 p.m. and walked straight toward the sedan she knew would be following her. Sure enough, it was parked at the corner of 9th and 42nd, engine running. She knocked on the tinted rear window. It rolled down, revealing Dante in the back seat, tablet in hand, like this was completely normal. Like stalking someone was just another Tuesday night activity. Get in, he said calmly. No. Then I'll come out there. Mia glanced around. The street wasn't empty. A few late-night pedestrians, a hot dog vendor packing up his cart. But something about the way Dante said it made her believe he would step out of his carefully controlled space and into hers without hesitation. She climbed in. The door closed behind her, sealing them in leather and silence and the faint scent of expensive cologne. The space was warm, a sharp contrast to the October chill outside. You're following me, Mia said. I'm making sure you're safe. I didn't ask for that. You didn't have to. Dante set down his tablet, giving her his full attention. In the dim light from the street lamps, his features were all sharp angles and shadows. You walk through some of the most dangerous neighborhoods in the city at midnight. Alone. Exhausted. Easy target. I've been doing it for 3 years. I'm fine. You've been lucky for 3 years. There's a difference. Mia's hands clenched in her lap. Why do you care? The question hung between them, heavy with implications neither was ready to name. Dante leaned back, studying her with that unnerving intensity. You know why? Say it. Because when I look at you, I see someone fighting a war they can't win. And I don't like watching people lose. He paused. Especially not people who refuse to surrender. I'm not one of your projects, Mia said, her voice shaking slightly. Or your property. You don't get to decide you want something and just take it. I'm not taking anything. I'm offering. Offering what? Money. Protection? In exchange for what exactly? She turned to face him fully. Because men like you don't do anything for free. There's always a price. Something flickered across Dante's face. Respect, maybe, or recognition. You're right. There is a price. And what is it? Your time. Your company. The chance to know you beyond the 2-minute interaction on a rain-soaked street. He leaned forward slightly. I want to understand what makes someone work themselves to death for $17. What makes them choose pride over survival? What makes them look at me like I'm just another obstacle instead of? Instead of what? Someone to fear? Someone to worship? Mia's voice rose. I looked at you like a man. That's all. A man who happened to have his car in my way. Exactly. The single word landed between them like a confession. I'm surrounded by people who see me as a means to an end. Dante continued quietly. Power, money, protection, fear. But you looked at me and saw a man. Someone who was in your way. Someone who didn't matter more than getting home to sleep before your next shift. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Do you know how rare that is? That doesn't give you the right to invade my life. No, he agreed. It doesn't, which is why I'm asking. Have dinner with me. One meal. Let me get to know the person behind the exhaustion. And if you still want me gone after that, I'll disappear. No more protection detail. No more following. No more offers. And Lily's tuition? Gets paid regardless. Consider it an apology for the inconvenience of having my car in your way. Mia wanted to say no. Every instinct screamed at her to get out of this car, this conversation, this man's orbit before he pulled her into something she couldn't escape. But $340 stood between Lily's semester and disaster. And despite everything, the stalking, the presumption, the unsettling intensity, Dante had kept his word about respecting her first refusal. He could have forced this. Men with his kind of power usually did. Instead, he was asking. One dinner, Mia said finally. And then you disappear. One dinner. Tomorrow night. Somewhere public. I choose the place. Dante's smile widened, genuine this time. Deal. Mia reached for the door handle, but Dante's voice stopped her. Mia. She glanced back. Thank you for getting in the car. I know it took courage. It took desperation, she corrected. There's a difference. She climbed out before he could respond, back into the cold October night, her heart racing for reasons she refused to examine. Behind her, the sedan pulled away, and Mia stood on the sidewalk wondering what she'd just agreed to, and why part of her, a small, treacherous part she tried desperately to ignore, was looking forward to tomorrow night. Dante watched her walk away through the tinted window, and for the first time in 15 years, he felt something close to anticipation. Not the cold satisfaction of a deal closing. Not the predatory pleasure of acquiring an asset. Just wanting to see her again. Wanting to hear her speak, watch her expressions, understand the mind behind those tired eyes. She said yes, Marco observed from the front seat. She did. You're in dangerous territory, boss. Dante knew what Marco meant. In their world, attachment was liability. Caring about someone gave your enemies a target, gave fate a cruel joke to play, gave the universe ammunition to destroy you. His mother had been his father's only weakness, and she'd died because of it. But as Dante watched Mia disappear into the subway station, shoulders squared despite her exhaustion, he couldn't bring himself to care about the danger. For the first time in years, he wanted something that wasn't about power or survival or empire. He wanted to know what it felt like to be seen as just a man, even if it destroyed him. Mia chose a diner in Midtown, not Metro where she worked, but close enough that the fluorescent lights and laminated menus felt like armor. This was her territory, the world of working people, of bottomless coffee and breakfast served all day. A place where a man in a $1,000 suit would stand out like a threat. She arrived 15 minutes early, claiming a corner booth with a view of the entrance. Her palms were sweating. She'd changed 3 times before settling on jeans and a clean sweater. The nicest clothes she owned that weren't stained with coffee or grease. Her hair was down for once, still damp from the shower she'd managed to squeeze in between shifts. She felt exposed without her uniform. At exactly 7 o'clock, Dante walked in. He'd dressed down, dark jeans, a simple black Henley leather jacket, but somehow looked more dangerous this way. Less businessman, more something else. Something primal that made every woman in the diner glance up, then quickly away, sensing predator. He spotted her immediately, and his expression shifted into something that might have been pleasure. You came, Mia said as he slid into the booth across from her. You doubted I would? I doubted I would. That pulled a genuine smile from him. What changed your mind? My bank account. But it was only half true, and they both knew it. A waitress appeared, Cheryl, mid-50s, who'd worked diners her whole life and had the weary competence to prove it. "What can I get you folks?" "Coffee," Mia said. "And the meatloaf special." Dante glanced at the menu, clearly out of his depth. "The same." Cheryl nodded and disappeared, leaving them in awkward silence. "You don't eat at places like this," Mia observed. "No." Dante folded his hands on the table. "I usually have private chefs. Or restaurants that require reservations weeks in advance. Places where you can control everything." His jaw tightened slightly. "Yes. Must be uncomfortable," Mia said. "Being somewhere you can't control. Terrifying, actually." The honesty surprised her. She'd expected bravado, maybe arrogance. Not admission of vulnerability. Cheryl returned with coffee, burnt and bitter, perfect diner coffee, and Dante took a sip, barely concealing his grimace. "It's awful, isn't it?" Mia said. "The worst I've ever had. Welcome to how the other half lives." She wrapped her hands around her own mug, letting the warmth seep into her perpetually cold fingers. "So, you wanted to get to know me. What do you want to know?" Dante considered this. "Why 3 jobs? My sister's tuition. Our rent. Food. The basics. You could get one better paying job." "With what credentials?" "I'm a college dropout with 6 years of waitressing experience. This is the best I can do." She met his eyes. "Not all of us have empires to inherit." "I didn't inherit anything," Dante said quietly. "I built it. From nothing. Nothing. Less than nothing. From a childhood in Brooklyn tenements where gunshots were the lullaby. From watching my mother die when I was 12 because she was in the wrong place at the wrong time. From foster homes and street corners and doing things I'm not proud of to survive." His voice was flat, emotionless, like he was reciting facts about someone else. "So when you say I don't understand struggle, you're wrong. I just found a different way out of it." Mia studied him, seeing past the expensive clothes and controlled demeanor to the boy he must have been. Scared, angry, determined to never be powerless again. "I'm sorry," she said. "About your mother." "Don't be. It was 22 years ago. Grief doesn't have an expiration date." Something flickered in his eyes. Recognition, maybe, or pain he'd learned to bury so deep it only surfaced in unguarded moments. "No, it doesn't." Cheryl returned with their food, breaking the tension. The meatloaf was exactly what diner meatloaf should be. Overseasoned, slightly dry, smothered in gravy. Comfort food for people who needed comfort they couldn't afford elsewhere. They ate in silence for a moment, and Mia found herself relaxing slightly. He wasn't what she'd expected. Yes, there was danger radiating from him like heat from asphalt in summer. Yes, everything about him screamed control and power and violence barely leashed. But underneath, she sensed something else. Loneliness. The kind that came from building walls so high that even you couldn't remember what it felt like on the other side. "Your sister," Dante said. "Lily. Tell me about her." Mia's face softened immediately. "She's brilliant. Like, genuinely brilliant. Biochemistry major, 3.9 GPA. Already has professors wanting her for research positions. She's going to cure diseases or discover something that changes the world. I know every sibling thinks that, but with Lily it's actually true. You're proud of her. She's the only thing I've done right." Mia pushed food around her plate. "When our parents died, everyone expected us to fall apart. Expected Lily to drop out. Expected me to crumble. But I made a promise at their funeral. Lily gets her degree. Lily gets the life they dreamed for her. Whatever it takes. Even if it destroys you, I'm not being destroyed. I'm surviving. There's a difference between surviving and living," Dante said quietly. Mia's laugh was bitter, rich coming from someone who's built an empire on fear. "You're right. I survived too. We're more alike than you want to admit." Before Mia could respond, her phone buzzed. She glanced at it, and her face went white. "What is it?" Dante asked, instantly alert. I have to go." She was already sliding out of the booth, hands shaking as she tried to gather her things. "Mia, what happened?" She showed him the text. "From Lily, Mia, I'm scared. There are men outside my dorm. They say I need to call you. They know your name. Please call me back." Dante's expression went cold, dangerous. "Does your sister owe money to anyone?" "No. She doesn't even have a credit card. I handle everything." Mia's breath caught. "Oh God. The loan sharks." "What loan sharks?" 6 months ago, I needed money for her textbooks. I was desperate. I borrowed from someone I shouldn't have. But I paid it back. All of it. With interest. How much? $800. Dante's jaw clenched. That's not how they work. You paid the principal, but there are always additional fees. Collection charges. Protection costs. They bleed you forever. He stood, pulling out his phone. Which family? I don't know. Some guy named Vinny. He works out of a pawn shop in Queens. Vinny Ragazzino. Small time but vicious. Dante was already texting someone. He's not connected to the major families, which means he doesn't follow the rules. Mia's voice broke. They're going to hurt her. No, they're not. Dante's hand closed around her wrist, gentle but firm. Because I'm going to handle this. Right now. I can't ask you to. You're not asking. I'm offering. He guided her toward the door. Dimitri. The driver appeared from the sedan outside, moving with military precision. We're going to Colombia. Now. And call Marco. Tell him to bring 5 men to the Northwest dorm building. Armed but discreet. Dante turned to Mia. What's Lily's dorm number? Hartley Hall, room 412. They climbed into the sedan, and Dimitri pulled away from the curb with controlled urgency. Mia's hands wouldn't stop shaking. She tried Lily's number 3 times, but it went straight to voicemail. She's not answering, Mia whispered. What if they already? They haven't. Dante's voice was absolute certainty. They're not stupid enough to hurt a Columbia student on campus. Too much attention. They're using her to get to you. Why? I paid them back. Because Vinny knows you're desperate. Knows you'll do anything for your sister. It's leverage. His eyes met hers. But he made one mistake. What? He touched something that's under my protection. I'm not under your protection. We've had one dinner. You got into my car. You asked for help, even if you didn't mean to. That makes you mine to protect. His voice softened slightly. And I protect what's mine. The possessiveness should have frightened her. Should have triggered every warning bell about controlling men and dangerous situations. Instead, for the first time in 3 years, Mia felt safe. They reached Columbia in 12 minutes. A drive that should have taken 30. Marco and 5 large men in dark suits were already waiting outside Hartley Hall, their presence causing students to give them wide berth. Northwest entrance, 2nd floor landing. Marco said quietly to Dante. 3 men. One's holding the girl's phone. She's not with them, probably in her room, door locked. Smart girl, Dante murmured. He turned to Mia. Stay with Dimitri. She's my sister, which is exactly why you stay here. I can't focus on Vinny's men if I'm worried about you. His hand cupped her face, thumb brushing her cheekbone in a gesture so tender it stole her breath. Trust me. I'll bring her down safely. Mia wanted to argue, wanted to storm in there herself. But she saw the cold calculation in Dante's eyes. The shift from the man who'd struggled with diner coffee to the predator who'd built an empire on violence. Don't hurt her, she whispered. I won't let anyone hurt her, including my own men. He nodded to Marco. Let's go. Mia watched from the car as Dante and his men entered the building. Students scattered, sensing danger even if they couldn't name it. Minutes crawled by like hours. He'll handle it, Dimitri said quietly from the driver's seat. Boss doesn't fail when he decides to protect someone. How many people has he protected? Before tonight? None. Dimitri met her eyes in the rearview mirror. You're the first person he's cared about in 15 years. Since his mother died. The words settled over Mia like a weight she didn't know how to carry. Inside the building, Dante climbed the stairs with Marco flanking him. The 3 men on the landing saw them coming and straightened, hands moving toward weapons. But they froze when they recognized Dante. Mr. Moretti, the leader, a stocky man with prison tattoos, stammered. We didn't know this wasn't. You have 10 seconds to tell me why you're threatening a college student in my city, Dante said quietly. We work for Vinny Ragazzino. The girl's sister owes. The sister paid her debt. In full. 6 months ago. Dante moved closer, and the men backed up instinctively. Which means Vinny is running an illegal collection operation without clearance from any of the 5 families. On my territory. Boss, we're just following orders. Bad orders. Dante's voice dropped to barely above a whisper. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to give me that phone. You're going to walk out of this building. And you're going to tell Vinny that Mia Chun and her sister are under my protection. Permanent protection. Anyone who touches them answers to me. Understood. The lead man nodded frantically, handing over Lily's phone. And tell Vinny if he has a problem with that, he can take it up with me personally. But I should warn him. The last person who challenged my protection is feeding fish in the East River. The men practically ran for the stairs. Marco raised an eyebrow. You're making Vinny an enemy. Vinny is small time. Not worth the air he breathes. Dante knocked on room 412's door. Lily. It's safe. Your sister sent me. The door opened a crack, revealing a young woman with Mia's eyes, but none of her exhaustion. She was trembling, phoneless, clearly terrified. Who are you? She asked. Someone who cares about your sister. Very much. Dante handed her the phone. You should call her. She's worried. Lily took the phone with shaking hands and immediately dialed. Dante heard Mia's frantic voice through the speaker. I'm okay, Lily said. There was this man. He just made them leave. Like they were terrified of him. Mia, who is he? Dante stepped back, nodding to Marco. Make sure she gets campus security escort for the next week. Discreet. And I want eyes on Vinny. If he so much as looks in Lily's direction, he's done. Got it. They headed back downstairs, where Mia was standing outside the car, unable to wait any longer. When she saw Dante, relief crashed over her features like a wave. Is she? Safe. Calling you right now. He paused. The men won't be back. Neither will their boss. How can you be sure? Because I made it clear that anyone who touches your sister answers to me. And people are more afraid of me than they are of whatever Vinny might do to them for backing down. Mia's phone rang. She answered immediately. Lily, are you okay? Dante gave her privacy, moving to speak with Marco. But he watched her from the corner of his eye. The way her shoulders finally relaxed, the way tears of relief tracked down her face, the way she laughed at something Lily said. When she hung up, she turned to him, and for the first time, there was no suspicion in her eyes. No guard. Just raw gratitude and something else he didn't dare name. Thank you, she whispered. I don't know how to repay. You don't repay this. This is what I do for people He stopped himself. For people under my protection. I don't understand why you're doing this. We barely know each other. Dante stepped closer. Close enough that she had to tilt her head back to meet his eyes. Sometimes you meet someone and everything shifts. The whole world rearranges itself around this one person. And you can't explain it, can't justify it. You just know that their safety matters more than your next breath. His thumb brushed away a tear on her cheek. That's why I'm doing this. I'm not yours to protect, Mia said, but the words had no conviction. Then whose are you, Mia? Because from where I'm standing, you've been protecting yourself and your sister for 3 years with nothing but exhaustion and desperation. Maybe it's time someone protected you for a change. People like you don't protect people like me without wanting something in return. You're right. I do want something. He leaned closer, his voice dropping. I want your time, your company, the chance to be the person you call when the world gets too heavy. I want to know what makes you laugh, what you dream about when you're not too exhausted to dream. He stopped, shocked by his own honesty. What? Mia pressed. I want to matter to you the way you've somehow started to matter to me. The confession hung between them. Vulnerable and dangerous. Mia's breath caught. This is crazy. We met 4 days ago. I know. You're a criminal. You hurt people. You built an empire on violence. I know that too. I should run. Should tell you to leave me alone and never come back. Probably. Dante's hand moved to cup her face. Are you going to? Mia looked up at him. This dangerous, powerful man who'd just upended his world to save her sister. Who'd asked instead of demanded. Who looked at her like she was the answer to every question that mattered. No, she whispered. I'm not. And then she did something that terrified her more than anything Vinny's men could have done. She leaned into his touch, letting herself be held by someone for the first time in 3 years. Letting herself trust that maybe, just maybe, not everyone who offered help wanted to destroy her in return. Over the next 2 weeks, Dante became part of Mia's life in ways she couldn't have predicted. He didn't insert himself aggressively, didn't demand her time or show up uninvited. Instead, he appeared in the margins, coffee waiting for her before her shift at Benny's, always the exact order she preferred. A text during her break at Metro Diner asking if she'd eaten. The discovery that her rent had been paid, not just for this month, but for the next 6. You have to stop doing this, Mia told him one evening as they sat in his car outside her apartment. It had become their routine. After her late shift, he'd be waiting, and they'd talk for an hour before she went upstairs. Doing what? Paying for things. Fixing my problems. I can handle my own life. I know you can. You've been doing it for 3 years with no help. Dante turned to face her. But why should you have to? Why does asking for help feel like failure to you? Because accepting help means owing someone. And owing someone means they have power over you. Is that what you think this is? Me trying to control you? Mia's hands twisted in her lap. I don't know what this is. Then let me tell you. Dante shifted closer. This is me trying to make your life easier. Not because I want something in return, but because watching you work yourself to death makes me feel. He stopped, searching for words. It makes me feel like I'm failing. Like all this power and money and influence is worthless if I can't use it to help one person who actually deserves it. I don't deserve special treatment. You deserve so much more than you allow yourself to have. The words settled between them, heavy with meaning. Mia had spent 3 years in survival mode, convinced that wanting anything beyond basic necessities was selfish, that her own comfort mattered less than Lily's future. But Dante looked at her like she mattered most of all. Tell me something, he said quietly. Something you've never told anyone. Mia hesitated. Vulnerability was dangerous. It gave people ammunition, showed them where you were weak. But hadn't he already shown her his own vulnerabilities? The dead mother, the violent childhood, the admission that he was terrified in that diner, out of his controlled environment. I'm angry, she said finally. All the time. At my parents for dying. At drunk drivers who walk away from accidents. At a world that demands I work 3 jobs just to keep my sister in school. At myself for not being stronger, smarter, better. Her voice cracked. And I hate that I'm angry, because it feels like I'm dishonoring their memory. They were good people who deserved better than a daughter who resents the sacrifice she's making. Mia. Dante's hand found hers. Being angry doesn't make you ungrateful. It makes you human. You're allowed to be furious at the unfairness of it all. Are you? Angry about your mother? His jaw tightened. Every single day. What happened to her? Mia asked softly. You said she died in crossfire, but... Dante was quiet for so long that Mia thought he wouldn't answer. Then slowly he began to speak. My father was small-time muscle for the Calabrese family. Enforcer work, collections, the occasional murder when they needed someone disposable. He was good at violence but terrible at everything else, including being a father. Dante's voice was flat, emotionless. My mother, Sophia, she tried to shield me from that world. She worked 2 jobs, cleaning offices at night, seamstress during the day. And she'd tell me stories about Italy, about the life we'd have someday when we got away from my father. But you never got away. No. When I was 12, my father got involved in something above his pay grade. Territory dispute between the Calabrese and a Russian crew. He made promises he couldn't keep, took money from both sides. So they came for him. Dante's hand tightened around Mia's. They came to our apartment in Brooklyn. Middle of the day, I was at school. My mother was home alone, doing piecework sewing to earn extra money. The Russians kicked in the door looking for my father, but he wasn't there. They started tearing the place apart, and my mother, his voice caught. She tried to stop them, told them my father wasn't worth the trouble, that she'd tell them where he was if they just left. They shot her, 5 times, left her bleeding out on our kitchen floor. Dante's eyes were distant, seeing a past he'd never escape. I came home from school and found her. She was still alive. Barely. She held my hand and told me to be strong, to be better than my father, to build something real, not just take from others. He swallowed hard. She died before the ambulance arrived. I sat there holding her for 40 minutes until the police came. Mia's hand moved to cup his face, forcing him to look at her. I'm so sorry. My father came home that night like nothing had happened. Told me to clean up the blood. Said my mother was weak for getting involved. Dante's voice turned cold. I killed him 3 years later. Made it look like a gang hit. No one questioned it. No one cared. The confession should have terrified Mia. Should have made her pull away, run, never look back. Instead, she saw the 12-year-old boy holding his dying mother's hand. The 15-year-old who decided that the only way to survive was to become more dangerous than anyone who could hurt him. That's why you need control, she said softly. Why you can't stand being powerless. Because powerless means people you love die. Yes. And that's why you're so determined to protect me and Lily. Dante nodded. I couldn't save my mother. But I can save you. I can make sure you never have to watch someone you love suffer because you didn't have enough money or power or influence to stop it. Dante, you can't save everyone. I don't want to save everyone. Just you. The intensity in his voice made Mia's heart race. This wasn't just attraction or curiosity anymore. This was something deeper, more dangerous. This was two broken people recognizing their fractures in each other. I need to tell you something, Mia said. About the night my parents died. Now it was Dante's turn to listen. It was 3 years ago, October 15th. Lily had just gotten accepted to Columbia, and we were celebrating at this little Italian restaurant in Queens. My parents were so happy. My dad kept saying, "Our baby's going to be a scientist," and my mom was already planning her graduation party. Mia's voice trembled. They dropped me off at my apartment first. I had an exam the next day, so I couldn't go home with them. My last words to my father were, "Drive safe, it's raining." Mia. 2 hours later, the police knocked on my door. Drunk driver ran a red light, T-boned them on the passenger side. My mother died instantly. My father held on for 3 days in the ICU, but there was too much internal damage. Tears tracked down her face. Before he died, he made me promise to take care of Lily, to make sure she finished college, lived the life they'd dreamed for her. And I promised. Even though I had no idea how I'd do it, I promised. That's a heavy burden for a 23-year-old. I dropped out of NYU the next week. Got the first job I could find, waitressing at Benny's. Then added the diner shift. Then catering on weekends. I moved into that shoebox apartment to save money. I stopped seeing friends, stopped doing anything that wasn't work or sleep or keeping Lily afloat. She looked at Dante, and I told myself I was fine. That sacrifice wasn't supposed to feel good. That as long as Lily made it, nothing else mattered. But it does matter. You matter. Do I? Mia's voice broke. Because some days I look in the mirror and I don't recognize myself. I'm 26 years old, and I feel ancient. I'm so tired, Dante. So tired of being strong and invisible and alone. And then you showed up, and suddenly I feel seen for the first time in 3 years, and that terrifies me. Why? Because what happens when you get bored? When you realize I'm just a broke waitress with nothing interesting to offer? What happens when you move on to the next shiny thing, and I'm left even more broken than before? Dante pulled her close, and Mia let herself lean into him, breathing in the scent of expensive cologne and leather and something uniquely him. I'm not going anywhere, he murmured against her hair. You think I do this for everyone? Show up at diners, pay rent, threaten loan sharks? I built walls around myself for 22 years. I let no one in, felt nothing, needed no one. And then you crashed into my life, literally, and suddenly those walls didn't seem worth maintaining anymore. I'm scared. So am I. He pulled back to look at her. I've done terrible things, Mia. I've hurt people, killed people, built an empire on fear and violence. I'm not a good man. I know, but with you I want to be. I want to be the man my mother thought I could become before the world turned me into this. His thumb brushed her cheek. You make me want to be worthy of the way you look at me. How do I look at you? Like I'm just a man, not a monster, not a weapon, just a man who might deserve kindness if he tries hard enough. Mia's breath caught, because he was right. Despite everything, the violence, the criminal empire, the danger that radiated from him like heat, she did see him as human, flawed and broken and trying, just like her. I have something to show you, Dante said suddenly. Somewhere I've never taken anyone. Will you come with me? It was nearly midnight. Mia had a shift at Benny's in 6 hours. Every logical part of her screamed that she should go upstairs, sleep, maintain the careful routine that kept her functioning. But logic hadn't kept her warm for 3 years. Logic hadn't made her feel alive. Yes, she said. Dante drove them to Brooklyn, to a neighborhood that had clearly seen better decades. They stopped in front of a small garden tucked between 2 apartment buildings. The kind of community space that survived through stubborn hope rather than city funding. This was my mother's favorite place, Dante said as they walked through the gate. She'd bring me here after school and we'd sit on that bench, he pointed to a weathered wooden bench under a willow tree. And she'd tell me about her childhood in Sicily, about gardens that went on for miles, about the smell of lemons and rosemary, about a world that was beautiful instead of brutal. They sat on the bench. Mia could imagine a younger Dante here, before violence hardened him, listening to his mother's stories and believing in beauty. After she died, I couldn't come back here for 10 years, Dante continued. Too painful. But eventually, I bought the buildings on either side, made sure the garden was maintained. It's the only place in the city where I feel peaceful. Why did you bring me here? Dante turned to face her, and in the dim light from the street lamps, his expression was raw, unguarded. Because you asked what this is between us. And I need you to understand. He took her hand. This isn't just attraction or curiosity, or even just protecting you. This is me standing in the place I loved most with my mother and saying, you belong here. In the parts of me I've kept locked away. In the spaces where I remember how to feel. Mia's heart hammered against her ribs. Dante, I'm falling for you, Mia. Have been since the moment you looked at me in the rain and demanded your sister's photo back like I was just another person in your way. And I know it's fast. I know we barely know each other. I know I'm dangerous and you're terrified and this probably won't end well. He cupped her face with both hands. But I'm falling anyway. And I need you to know that before we go any further. Mia should have pulled away. Should have protected herself. Should have remembered that powerful men were dangerous and love was a luxury she couldn't afford. Instead, she leaned forward and kissed him. It was soft at first, tentative testing. Then Dante's hands moved to her hair, and Mia pressed closer, and the kiss deepened into something desperate, like two drowning people finding air, like recognition after a lifetime of being invisible. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, Mia whispered, I'm falling too. And it terrifies me. Good, Dante murmured against her lips. We can be terrified together. They sat in that garden for hours, sharing stories in silence, building something fragile and real in the space between their broken pieces. Neither of them knew that in 2 days, that fragile thing would shatter completely. The morning after the garden, Mia woke to sunlight streaming through her apartment window and the smell of fresh coffee. She bolted upright, disoriented. She never overslept. Her body was trained to wake at 5 a.m. regardless of when she'd gone to bed, an internal alarm clock forged by 3 years of relentless routine. But her phone showed 9:47 a.m. She'd missed her shift at Benny's. Panic flooded through her as she grabbed her phone, finding 3 missed calls from Benny and a text from an unknown number. I called your boss. Told him you were sick. Your shift is covered. Sleep, Mia. You've earned it. D. A second text followed. There's coffee and breakfast outside your door. Don't argue. Mia opened her door to find an insulated bag containing gourmet coffee, fresh croissants, fruit, and a note in bold handwriting, real food. Not granola bars or ramen. Eat. She should have been angry at the presumption. At him making decisions for her, calling her boss, disrupting her carefully maintained routine. Instead, she sat on her futon with the still warm coffee and cried. Because no one had taken care of her in 3 years. No one had noticed she was running on empty. No one had given her permission to rest. Until him. By the time Mia showered and actually ate a full breakfast, it was nearly 11. Her phone rang. Dante. You're awake, he said, and she could hear the smile in his voice. You got me fired, didn't you? No. I told Benny you had food poisoning and would be back tomorrow. He was surprisingly understanding when I mentioned I'd be happy to invest in his cafe if he needed capital for renovations. You bribed my boss so I could sleep in? I prefer to think of it as mutually beneficial networking. He paused. Are you angry? Mia considered. Was she? I should be. But you're not. No, she admitted. I'm grateful. And that scares me more than anger ever could. Why? Because I've spent 3 years not needing anyone. And suddenly I'm starting to need you. And what happens when? Don't, Dante interrupted gently. Don't catastrophize the future. Just be here. Now. With me. I have a shift at Metro at 4. Then we have 4 hours. Let me show you something. Another secret garden? Better. Trust me. Dante picked her up 30 minutes later in a different car. A sleek BMW instead of the imposing SUV. He was dressed casually again, and Mia realized she preferred him this way. Less armor, more human. Where are we going? She asked as they merged onto the highway. You'll see. They drove north out of the city, through suburbs that gradually gave way to countryside. Mia watched the landscape change through the window, feeling something tight in her chest slowly unwind. When was the last time she'd left the city? When had she last seen trees that weren't struggling to survive in concrete? After an hour, Dante turned onto a narrow road that led to a lake. Not a tourist spot. There were no crowds, no vendors, just quiet water reflecting autumn trees, and a small dock extending into the stillness. This is beautiful, Mia breathed. I bought this property 5 years ago. was planning to build a house, but I could never bring myself to disturb it. So it just sits here, waiting. Dante led her down to the dock. Sometimes I come here when the city gets too loud, when I need to remember there's more to the world than territory and power and violence. They sat at the dock's edge, feet dangling over the water. The silence was profound. No traffic, no sirens, no constant hum of urban chaos. Just wind and water and the occasional bird. "Thank you for this," Mia said softly. "You don't have to thank me for giving you what you deserve." "And what do I deserve?" Dante turned to look at her, his dark eyes intense. "Peace. Rest. Someone who sees you. Not the role you play or the sacrifices you make. But you, Mia, the woman who reads poetry on the subway between shifts. Who sends her sister encouraging texts even when she's exhausted. Who somehow manages to be kind in a world that's given her every reason to be bitter. How do you know I read poetry? I notice things. The book in your purse at the diner. The way your lips move sometimes when you're lost in thought, like you're reciting lines to yourself." Mia's breath caught. No one had ever paid that much attention to her. Not even people who'd claimed to love her. "Pablo Neruda," she admitted. "I found a collection at a used bookstore years ago. Reading his words makes me feel less alone. Read me something. Please." Mia didn't have the book with her, but she'd memorized her favorite poem years ago. She closed her eyes and recited, "I want to do with you what spring does with the cherry trees." That's the whole poem. Just that one line. But it says everything, doesn't it? About wanting to bring someone to life. To help them bloom after a long winter. When she opened her eyes, Dante was staring at her with an expression that made her heart stutter. "That's what you do to me," he said quietly. "You make me feel like I'm blooming after years of winter. Like maybe I'm not just the violence and the empire. Like maybe there's still something in me worth saving. Dante, I need to tell you something. About what I've done. Who I really am." His jaw clenched. "Because if we're going to do this, whatever this is, you need to know the full truth." Mia's stomach tightened, but she nodded. "Okay, I've killed 17 people. Some in self-defense. Most not. I run illegal gambling operations in 6 states. I traffic in stolen goods, art, jewelry, cars. I own politicians and judges and police captains. I've destroyed lives, broken families, done things that would make you sick if you saw them." He met her eyes. "I'm telling you this because you deserve to know what you're getting into. What being with me means." The confession hung between them, brutal and honest. Mia processed it slowly. She'd known he was dangerous, had seen glimpses of the violence that lurked beneath his controlled surface. But hearing it stated so plainly was different. "Real. Are you still doing those things?" she asked. "Some. The gambling, yes. The politicians, yes. That's how power works in my world. The killing." He paused. "Not unless I have to. I've been trying to transition to more legitimate operations. Construction. Real estate. But you don't just walk away from the life. It follows you. Why are you trying to transition?" "Because I'm tired. Tired of blood. Tired of constantly watching my back. Tired of being the monster everyone fears." His hand found hers. "And because I met someone who makes me want to be better. Who looks at me like I might be capable of redemption." Mia stared out at the water, thinking. Every rational part of her said to run. To end this before she got in too deep, before his world swallowed hers. But rationality hadn't kept her company for 3 years. Hadn't held her when she cried. Hadn't made her feel alive. "I can't be with someone who hurts innocent people," she said finally. "I know. If you kill someone, anyone, while we're together, I'm gone. No second chances. Understood. And I need you to keep trying. To build something legitimate. Something that doesn't require violence." "I will. I am." Dante squeezed her hand. "I promise you, Mia. I'm trying to be the man you see when you look at me." She turned to face him fully. "I don't see a monster, Dante. I see someone who survived something terrible and made hard choices to ensure it never happened again. I see someone who's been alone so long they forgot what connection feels like. I see," her voice softened, "someone who deserves the same kindness he's been showing me." Dante pulled her close, pressing his forehead to hers. "I don't deserve you. Maybe not. But you have me anyway." They kissed, slow and deep, the autumn sun warm on their shoulders. When they pulled apart, Dante's expression was lighter than she'd ever seen it. "Stay with me today," he said. "Skip your shift. Let me take care of you for once." "I can't afford to. I already called Metro. Told them you had a family emergency." Your shift is covered. At her look, he added, and yes, I offered to cater their holiday party for free. Mutually beneficial networking. You're impossible. I'm determined. He stood, pulling her to her feet. Come on. There's a town about 10 minutes from here. Let's get lunch at a place where no one knows who I am, and I can just be a man on a date with a beautiful woman. A real date. The most normal date you can imagine. Burgers, maybe a movie, walking around without looking over our shoulders. What do you say? Mia thought about Metro Diner, about pouring coffee for indifferent customers, about the exhaustion that never quite left her bones. Then she looked at Dante, dangerous, powerful, broken Dante, offering her a few hours of normal, of being just two people instead of a criminal and a struggling waitress. Yes, she said. They spent the afternoon being achingly ordinary. Lunch at a small-town diner where the waitress called them Han, and the burgers came with fries that were actually good. A walk through a farmer's market where Dante bought her a bouquet of wildflowers and seemed genuinely delighted when she said they were perfect. A bookstore where they got lost in separate sections and met back at the register with small stacks. Him with biographies of historical figures, her with poetry and a cookbook she'd never have time to use but wanted anyway. You like cooking? Dante asked, glancing at the cookbook. I used to. Before. She shrugged. Now it's just ramen and whatever I can microwave. What would you make if you had time? My mom's lasagna recipe. She was Italian. Well, Italian-American. And she made this incredible lasagna every Sunday. Took hours, but it was worth it. The whole apartment would smell like garlic and basil and home. Mia smiled at the memory. Lily and I would hover around the kitchen, stealing cheese, and my mom would pretend to be annoyed, but she loved having us there. Make it for me, Dante said. What? Your mother's lasagna. Make it for me. I'll buy all the ingredients, clear my schedule, and you can spend hours in my kitchen teaching me how to help. I want to taste what home smells like. Tears pricked Mia's eyes. You're serious. Completely. This weekend. Just us. No work, no obligations. Just cooking and being together. He touched her face gently. Let me give you back a piece of what you lost. Mia nodded, not trusting her voice. They bought the cookbook. On the drive back to the city, with the sun setting and Mia's head resting against Dante's shoulder, she felt something she hadn't felt in 3 years. Hope. Not the desperate, clinging kind that came from survival, but real hope. The kind that whispered maybe life could be more than just getting through each day. Maybe she deserved more than exhaustion and sacrifice. Maybe she deserved this. A man who bought her wildflowers and wanted to learn her mother's lasagna recipe, who saw her as more than invisible, who made her feel like blooming after a long winter. What are you thinking? Dante asked softly. That I'm scared how much I'm starting to need you. Is that so terrible? It is when I've spent 3 years making sure I didn't need anyone. Maybe that's exactly why you should let yourself need me now. Because you've been carrying everything alone for too long, and there's no shame in setting some of it down. He pressed a kiss to her temple. Let me carry some of it with you, Mia. That's what this is. Sharing the weight. Mia intertwined her fingers with his. Okay. I'll let you in. I'll trust this. I'll try to believe that maybe, just maybe, something good can last. Dante pulled the car over to the shoulder, put it in park, and kissed her like she was air and he'd been drowning. I won't let you down, he murmured against her lips. I promise you, Mia. I'll be worthy of this trust if it kills me. She kissed him back, pouring 3 years of loneliness and longing into it, letting herself finally believe that maybe she'd found something real. Neither of them could have known that in 3 days, that promise would be tested in ways that would nearly destroy them both. But for now, in this moment, they had each other. And that felt like enough. What's a simple thing someone's done for you that made you feel truly seen? Drop your answer below. Sometimes the smallest gestures mean the most. Saturday arrived with the kind of crisp autumn air that promised change. Mia stood in Dante's penthouse kitchen, a space of gleaming marble and professional-grade appliances that she'd only seen in magazines, surrounded by ingredients for her mother's lasagna. Dante was beside her, sleeves rolled up, looking endearingly out of place as he attempted to mince garlic. Not like that, Mia laughed, gently taking the knife from him. You're massacring it. Here. She demonstrated the rocking motion, and he tried again, this time with more success. I've negotiated multi-million-dollar deals, he muttered, and I'm being defeated by garlic. Different skill set. She bumped his shoulder with hers. But you're getting it. They'd been cooking for 2 hours, and Mia felt lighter than she had in years. The kitchen smelled like her childhood. Basil and oregano, simmering tomatoes, the yeasty scent of fresh pasta dough. Dante had bought everything on her list without question, including the expensive imported Parmigiano Reggiano her mother had always insisted on. Tell me about her, Dante said as they layered the lasagna. Your mother. What was she like? Mia smiled, spreading ricotta across pasta sheets. Loud. Everything about her was loud. Her laugh, her opinions, her love. She sang while she cooked, usually off-key. She'd argue with strangers about politics on the subway. She'd hug you so tight you couldn't breathe, and somehow that was perfect. Her voice softened. She worked so hard. 2 jobs just like me. But she never seemed tired. Or if she was, she hid it better than I can. She'd be proud of you. What you've done for Lily. I hope so. Sometimes I wonder if I'm doing it right. If she'd approve of the choices I've made. Dante's hand covered hers. You kept your promise. You kept your sister safe and in school despite impossible odds. That's not just doing it right. That's extraordinary. They slid the lasagna into the oven, and Mia set the timer. An hour until dinner. They cleaned up together, falling into an easy rhythm. Dante washing, Mia drying, both of them stealing kisses between dishes. I could get used to this, Mia admitted as they moved to the living room. Floor-to-ceiling windows showed Manhattan spreading out below them, the city glittering as evening approached. Then move in with me. Mia froze, dish towel still in her hands. What? Move in. Bring Lily if you want. I have 4 bedrooms. You could quit at least 1 job. Actually sleep. Have time to breathe. Dante moved closer. I know it's fast. But Mia, I'm falling in love with you. And I want you here. Want to wake up next to you. Want to make you breakfast and hear about your day and hold you when the world gets heavy. Mia's heart raced. Dante, His phone rang. He ignored it. It rang again. You should get that, Mia said softly. Dante checked the screen and frowned. Marco, he answered. This better be important. Mia couldn't hear Marco's words, but she watched Dante's expression shift from annoyed to cold. The warmth drained from his eyes, replaced by something predatory and dangerous. When? Pause. How many? Another pause. I'm on my way. He hung up and stood, already moving toward his bedroom. I have to go. There's a situation. What kind of situation? Business. I'll be back in a few hours. He was pulling on a different shirt now, this one black. Practical. The kind you wore when you expected violence. Dante, what's happening? He paused, and when he looked at her, she saw the criminal. Not the man who'd struggled with garlic. Not the man who'd asked her to move in. The cold, calculating predator who'd built an empire on fear. Rival family hit one of my operations. 3 of my men are dead. This requires a response. Mia's stomach dropped. What kind of response? The kind that makes sure it doesn't happen again. You're going to kill someone. I'm going to protect what's mine. I told you, Mia's voice shook. I told you if you killed anyone while we were together, I'd leave. No second chances. Dante's jaw clenched. This isn't optional, Mia. This is survival. If I don't respond, I look weak. And in my world, weakness gets you killed. Then leave that world. You said you were trying to go legitimate. You promised. I'm trying. But I can't just walk away while people are actively trying to destroy what I've built. 3 men died tonight. Men with families, with kids, because someone thought they could challenge me without consequences. He moved back toward her. I don't want to do this. But I have to. No, you don't. You choose to. There's always a choice. Not for me. Not in this life. Mia felt tears burning. Then I can't do this. The words hung between them like shattered glass. Dante went very still. What? I can't be with someone who chooses violence. Who values his empire more than, her voice broke. More than us. Than this. Than the man you were 5 minutes ago in that kitchen. Mia, don't do this. Don't make me choose between you and survival. I'm not making you choose anything. You already chose. She grabbed her purse, the flowers he'd bought her yesterday still visible inside. When your phone rang, you didn't even hesitate. Didn't even consider if there was another way. You just became him. The monster everyone fears. I told you who I was. I was honest about the violence, about what my world requires. And I told you my boundary. No killing. No innocent blood. Mia moved toward the door. You're going out there tonight to end someone's life, and maybe they deserve it, maybe they don't. But either way, I can't be part of that. I can't love someone who solves problems with murder. Dante followed her. So that's it? One situation and you're done. This isn't one situation. This is who you are. And I was naive to think I could love the man without accepting the monster. Tears streamed down her face now. I thought you were changing. Thought you wanted to be better. But the second your empire was threatened, you didn't even question it. Just grabbed your murder shirt and headed out the door. 3 men died tonight, Mia. Men who worked for me, who trusted me to protect them. What am I supposed to do? Send flowers. Hold a prayer vigil. Find another way. Talk to this family. Negotiate. Use your money or your influence or anything that doesn't involve more death. She was sobbing now. Because if you walk out that door tonight to kill someone, we're done. Permanently. Dante stared at her, something breaking in his expression. You're asking me to show weakness in a world where weakness is death. I'm asking you to be the man you were in the kitchen an hour ago. The man who was learning to mince garlic and talking about waking up next to me. That man doesn't need violence to survive. That man is strong enough to find another way. For a moment, Dante wavered. Mia saw the war in his eyes. The man versus the monster, love versus survival, the life he'd built versus the life he wanted. Then his phone rang again, and she watched him harden. Watched the vulnerability disappear behind armor, forged by 22 years of violence and loss. I have to go, he said quietly. Then go. But don't expect me to be here when you get back. Mia walked to the door, every step feeling like dying. Behind her, she heard Dante's ragged breathing, heard him say her name once, broken, desperate. But he didn't stop her. She took the elevator down 40 floors, her chest so tight she couldn't breathe. The doorman called her a cab, and she climbed in, gave her address in Queens through tears. As the cab pulled away, she looked back at Dante's building, at the penthouse where lasagna was still baking in the oven, filling his home with the smell of hers, where a man who'd promised to be worthy of her trust had chosen his empire instead. Dante stood at his window, watching Mia's cab disappear into traffic. Marco appeared in the doorway. Boss, we need to move. Give me a minute. We don't have a minute. The Volkov brothers are expecting retaliation. If we don't respond now. I said give me a minute. Dante's roar echoed through the penthouse. Marco retreated. Dante pressed his forehead against the cold glass, his reflection staring back at him. Behind him, the kitchen where they'd laughed and cooked and been so effortlessly domestic. Where he'd felt, for a few hours, like a man instead of a weapon. His phone buzzed. A text from Dmitri. Volkov's location confirmed. We have a clean shot. Orders? 3 men were dead. Men who'd worked for him trusted him. The Volkov brothers had killed them to send a message. Dante Moretti was vulnerable. His territory could be challenged. If he didn't respond, the attacks would continue. Other families would see weakness. His empire, everything he'd built to ensure he'd never be that powerless 12-year-old again, would crumble. But if he responded, he'd lose Mia. The woman who looked at him and saw a man worth saving. The woman who made him want to be better. The woman who'd just walked away because he'd chosen survival over her. His fingers hovered over his phone. He could text Dmitri, stand down. We negotiate. He could prove to Mia that he was willing to change. To find another way. To be the man she believed he could be. But 3 men were dead. And in his world, letting that go unpunished was signing his own death warrant. Dante closed his eyes, and when he opened them, the decision was made. He texted Dmitri, proceed. Make it clean. I want this done in 30 minutes. Then he threw his phone across the room, where it shattered against the wall. Marco appeared again. Boss, it's handled. The Volkovs will be dead within the hour. Dante's voice was hollow. Get out. I need to be alone. What about? Get out. Marco left. Dante sank to the floor, back against the window, and let himself break. He'd chosen survival. Chosen the empire. Chosen violence over love. Just like he always did. Just like he always would. Because monsters didn't get happy endings. They got power and loneliness and blood on their hands. And Mia Chun, beautiful, stubborn, hopeful Mia, deserved so much better than a monster. Even if losing her felt like dying. Mia made it to her apartment before she completely fell apart. She collapsed on her futon, still in her coat, and sobbed. Great, gasping sobs that came from somewhere deep and primal. Grief for what they'd almost had. fury at herself for believing he could change, heartbreak so profound she couldn't breathe through it. Her phone rang. Lily. Mia almost didn't answer, but years of protective instinct made her pick up. Hey, she managed, voice wrecked. Mia? What's wrong? You sound. I'm fine. Just tired. You're not fine. What happened? A pause. Is this about that guy? The one who scared off those loan sharks. Mia hadn't told Lily about Dante. Hadn't known how to explain that she'd fallen for a criminal. That she'd let herself believe in something impossible. It doesn't matter. It's over. Then why do you sound like your heart's been ripped out? Because it has. Fresh tears came. I fell in love with someone I can't save, Lily. And I had to walk away before his world destroyed me. Lily was quiet for a moment. Did he hurt you? No. God, no. He was. Mia's voice broke. He was kind. And broken. And trying so hard to be better. But his past kept pulling him back, and tonight he chose it over me. I'm coming home. No. You have classes. Classes can wait. My sister needs me. The words made Mia cry harder. Because she'd spent 3 years being the strong one, the protector, the one who handled everything. And now Lily was offering to do the same for her. I love you, Mia whispered. I love you too. I'm catching the next train. I'll be there in an hour. They hung up, and Mia curled into herself, the smell of Dante's cologne still on her clothes. She'd done the right thing. She knew that. But right things weren't supposed to hurt this much. Weren't supposed to feel like losing the only person who'd seen her. Really seen her. In 3 years. Weren't supposed to feel like dying. In a warehouse across the city, the Volkov brothers died quickly. Dmitri's men were efficient. 2 bullets each. Clean. Professional. Marco called Dante with the confirmation. It's done, boss. Message sent. No one will challenge us for a while. Good, Dante said flatly. You okay? No. But I will be. It was a lie. They both knew it. Dante ended the call and stared at the kitchen where lasagna was burning in the oven, the smoke alarm finally shrieking to life. He didn't move to turn it off. Just sat there, letting the smell of something good burning fill his home. A perfect metaphor for everything he'd just destroyed. 3 weeks passed like open wounds. Mia went back to her routine, 3 jobs, impossible hours, exhaustion that felt permanent. But now everything reminded her of him. The coffee that appeared at Benny's those mornings. The streets where his car had followed her. The diner booth where they'd had their first real conversation. She'd blocked his number after the first 100 texts. Stopped reading the letters his driver tried to deliver. Avoided anywhere she might accidentally run into him. But she couldn't avoid the payments. Her rent. Paid 6 months in advance, just like before. Lily's tuition, covered in full, including next semester. An envelope of cash that appeared in her locker at Metro Diner every week. Always exactly enough to cover her groceries and subway fare. He was taking care of her from a distance, respecting her boundary while refusing to let her struggle. It made her furious and heartbroken, and somehow loved in a way that hurt worse than his absence. You need to talk to him, Lily said one evening as they sat in Mia's apartment, sharing takeout. Lily had been visiting more often since the breakup, worried about her sister in ways she'd never had to be before. There's nothing to say. Mia, the man is clearly in love with you, and you're miserable without him. Love isn't enough when someone can't change. Did you give him a chance to? Or did you just run the second things got hard? Mia's head snapped up. He went out to kill people, Lily. That's not things getting hard. That's who he fundamentally is. Is it? Lily set down her chopsticks. Because from what you've told me, he was trying to go legitimate. Was building something different. And then his people got murdered and he responded the only way he knew how. She paused. I'm not saying what he did was right, but I am saying you gave him an ultimatum in the middle of a crisis instead of trying to help him find another way. I can't fix him. No one's asking you to fix him. But maybe you could stand beside him while he fixes himself. Maybe you could be the person who believes he's capable of change, instead of the person who leaves the second he stumbles. The words hit like a slap, because they were true. Mia had run, had been so terrified of getting hurt, of investing in someone who might destroy her, that she'd left at the first real test of their relationship. Just like she'd accused him of not fighting for them, she hadn't fought either. What if I go back and he doesn't change? Mia whispered. What if I give him another chance and he chooses violence again? Then you leave. For real this time. But at least you'll know you tried. Lily reached across the table, taking her sister's hand. You've spent 3 years being afraid to need anyone. And the first time you let someone in, you ran the moment it got scary. Don't you think you owe it to yourself, to both of you, to at least try? Dante had stopped sleeping. His penthouse felt haunted by the ghost of what they'd almost had. The kitchen where they'd cooked. The couch where they'd fallen asleep watching movies. The bedroom where he'd imagined waking up next to her every morning for the rest of his life. He'd burned the lasagna that night. Let the smoke alarm wail until Marco had broken in, thinking there was an emergency. There had been. Just not the kind Marco could help with. You need to eat, Marco said now, 3 weeks later, watching Dante push around food on his plate at a restaurant meeting. You need to sleep. You need to function, boss. I'm functioning fine. You've lost 15 pounds. You look like death. And yesterday you almost agreed to a deal that would have cost us $2 million because you weren't paying attention. Marco leaned forward. Go to her. Apologize. Fix this. She doesn't want to see me. Have you tried? I've texted. Called. Written letters. She's blocked me on everything. Dante's voice was hollow. She made her choice. I have to respect it. Even if it's killing you? Especially then. But that night, alone in his penthouse, Dante made a decision. He couldn't have Mia. Couldn't be the man she needed him to be while running an empire built on violence. So he'd dismantle it. He called his lawyer first. Then his accountant. Then, one by one, the heads of his various operations. By dawn, Dante Moretti had begun the process of liquidating his criminal empire. The gambling operations, sold to the Calabrese family for a fraction of their worth, with the condition that his people kept their jobs. The smuggling routes, handed over to associates who'd been loyal for years. The protection rackets, ended with compensation paid to every business that had been forced to participate. You're giving away your kingdom, Marco said, watching Dante sign document after document. For a woman who won't even talk to you. I'm not doing it for her. I'm doing it for me. Dante set down his pen. She was right, Marco. I chose the empire over her because I was terrified of being powerless again. But you know what I realized? I'm more powerless now than I've ever been. Because all this, he gestured to the documents, means nothing without her. So what's the play? I'm going legitimate. Real estate development. Construction. Things that don't require blood. He stood, moving to the window. It'll take months to untangle everything. Maybe a year. But I'm going to do it. Become the man she believed I could be. And then what? Then maybe I'll be worthy of asking for another chance. Mia stood outside Dante's building at 7 a.m, terrified. She'd been standing there for 20 minutes, trying to gather courage. Lily's words had haunted her for 2 days. Maybe you could be the person who believes he's capable of change. The doorman, the same one who'd called her cabs, recognized her immediately. Ms. Chun, should I call up to Mr. Moretti? Is he home? Yes, ma'am. Been home for 3 weeks straight. Barely leaves. The doorman's expression softened. Between you and me, he's not doing well. Mia's chest tightened. Can you tell him I'm here? That I'd like to talk? Of course. 5 minutes later, the doorman returned. He says you can go up. Penthouse level. You remember? Mia nodded and took the elevator, her heart hammering. What was she going to say? I'm sorry I ran. I'm sorry I didn't fight for us. I'm scared, but I love you anyway. The elevator doors opened directly into his penthouse. Dante stood by the window, and Mia's breath caught. Marco was right. He looked terrible. Thinner, hollowed out, like he'd been carved away from the inside. He wore sweatpants and a t-shirt, his hair uncombed, dark circles under his eyes that spoke of weeks without sleep. He looked like she felt. Mia, he breathed, like her name was a prayer. Hi. They stared at each other across the expensive space, neither knowing how to bridge the distance. I'm sorry, they said simultaneously. That broke the tension slightly. Mia moved closer. You first. Dante ran a hand through his hair. I'm sorry I chose the empire over you. You were right. I didn't even hesitate. Just defaulted to violence because it was all I knew. I broke my promise to you. Broke your trust. And I've spent 3 weeks hating myself for it. Dante, let me finish. Please. He took a shaky breath. After you left, I sat in that kitchen and smelled the lasagna burning and realized I'd just destroyed the best thing in my life because I was too afraid to be vulnerable. Too afraid to show weakness in a world that punishes it. But you know what? Losing you hurt worse than any weakness ever could. Mia's eyes filled with tears. So I'm doing what I should have done that night. I'm dismantling everything. The gambling, the smuggling, all of it. I'm going legitimate. It's going to take time, probably a year to fully untangle. But I'm doing it. Not because I expect you to take me back. Not because I think this earns your forgiveness. But because you made me see that I was a slave to my empire, just as much as you were a slave to your 3 jobs. And I want to be free. You're really leaving that world? Mia whispered. I'm already gone. I've sold or transferred 90% of my operations in the last 3 weeks. By the end of the year, I'll be nothing but a real estate developer with a questionable past. He smiled sadly. Boring. Legitimate. Safe. Why? Because I want to be the man you saw that day in the kitchen. The man who struggled with garlic and talked about waking up next to you. That man is who I want to be, Mia. With or without you in my life. Mia crossed the remaining distance between them, stopping inches away. I'm sorry too. I ran instead of fighting for us. I gave you an ultimatum in the middle of a crisis instead of helping you find another way. I was so scared of getting hurt that I hurt us both. You had every right to run. I was exactly what you feared, a monster choosing violence. But you were also a man who just lost 3 people under his protection. A man facing an impossible choice. And instead of standing beside you, trying to find a solution together, I made it about me. About my fear. She touched his face, and he leaned into her palm like he'd been starving for her touch. I should have stayed. Should have helped you see there were other options. Should have been the partner you needed instead of just someone who judges from the sidelines. Mia, you don't have to. Yes, I do. Because Lily was right. I've spent 3 years being terrified to need anyone. And the first time I let someone in, I ran at the first real test. That's not love. That's just fear pretending to have standards. Dante's hands moved to her waist, pulling her closer. So what do we do now? We try again. Slower this time. With more communication and less running. She looked up at him. I can't promise I won't get scared. Can't promise I'll always know how to navigate your world or your past. But I promise to stay and fight instead of leaving. To be the person who believes you're capable of change. And I promise to actually change. To find solutions that don't involve violence. To let you help me become better instead of trying to do it all alone. His forehead pressed against hers. I love you, Mia-chan. I have since the moment you demanded your sister's photo back like I was just another obstacle in your already impossible day. I love you too. Even though you're impossible and controlling and sometimes infuriating. Especially because of that. Maybe. She smiled through tears. Definitely because you learned to mince garlic for me. And because you bought wildflowers at a farmer's market. And because you saw me when I'd forgotten what being seen felt like. Dante kissed her then, soft and desperate and full of promises. When they pulled apart, both were crying. Move in with me, he said again. For real this time. Bring Lily. Quit at least 2 jobs. Let me take care of you while you take care of yourself for once. That's a lot of change very fast. Then start small. Keep your apartment, but stay here on weekends. Let me make you breakfast before your shifts. Let me be part of your life instead of just watching from the shadows. He brushed away her tears. I don't need everything at once. I just need you. However you can give yourself to me. Mia thought about her shoebox apartment. About 3 jobs that were slowly killing her. About 3 years of survival mode and exhaustion and loneliness. Then she looked at Dante, broken, changing, trying, and saw a future that looked like hope. Okay, she said. Weekends first. Then we see where it goes. Weekends first, he agreed, pulling her close again. But fair warning, I'm going to try very hard to convince you to stay forever. I'm counting on it. They stood there, wrapped around each other, as morning light filled the penthouse. Outside, the city woke up. Inside, 2 people who'd almost lost each other chose to try again. Chose change over comfort. Chose love over fear. Chose each other, flaws and all. 1 year later, Mia woke to the smell of coffee and something burning. She smiled before she even opened her eyes, knowing exactly what she'd find in the kitchen. Sure enough, when she padded out of the bedroom, their bedroom now, in the penthouse that had become home 6 months ago, Dante stood at the stove, scowling at a pan of what might have once been pancakes. You're supposed to flip them before they turn black, she said, wrapping her arms around him from behind. I got distracted reading the contract for the Brooklyn development. He gestured to his tablet on the counter, covered in notes. Did you know they want to put in luxury condos instead of affordable housing? I'm pushing back. Mia pressed a kiss between his shoulder blades. Look at you, being a responsible developer. Don't sound so surprised. But he was smiling as he turned in her arms, abandoning the ruined pancakes. Good morning. Good morning. She kissed him properly, still amazed that she got to do this. Wake up in his arms. Kiss him without fear. Build a life together that felt real and solid and safe. It hadn't been easy. The first months were rocky. Old habits dying hard. Arguments about his need for control versus her need for independence. Moments when the ghost of his violent past threatened to pull him back. But they'd fought through it. Together. Dante had kept his promise. The criminal empire was gone, liquidated piece by piece until all that remained was legitimate business. Real estate development focused on affordable housing and community improvement. Construction projects that employed people who needed second chances. Investments in small businesses in struggling neighborhoods. He'd taken everything he'd learned in the underworld, strategy, negotiation, reading people, and channeled it into building instead of destroying. And Mia had kept her promise too. She'd quit 2 of her 3 jobs, keeping only the morning shift at Benny's because she genuinely loved it. She'd gone back to school part-time, finishing her degree in social work. She'd learned to accept help without feeling like she was losing herself. She'd learned that being loved didn't mean being controlled. Lily's coming for dinner tonight, Mia said, rescuing the pancakes before they completely carbonized. She's bringing someone she wants us to meet. The biochemistry student from her lab? James, yeah. She's nervous about it. Mia started making fresh pancakes, and Dante moved to help, their movements synchronized after a year of mornings together. I think she's afraid we'll do the protective family interrogation thing. We would never. At Mia's look, Dante grinned. Okay, I might ask a few pointed questions, just to make sure he's good enough for her. Dante. What? I'm allowed to care about my future sister-in-law. The casual phrase made Mia's heart skip. Future sister-in-law. Implying a future where Dante and Mia were married. They'd talked about it, danced around it, but neither had explicitly said the word. Not yet. Speaking of family, Dante said, seemingly oblivious to the bomb he'd just dropped. Marco wants to know if we're coming to his daughter's christening next month. Of course we are. I'm not missing little Sophia's big day. Mia plated the pancakes. Perfectly golden this time. It's still surreal that Marco has a family. That you have normal friends now who do normal things like christenings. Is it weird that I'm better at negotiating million-dollar deals than I am at small talk about baby clothes? It's very weird. But also very you. She kissed his cheek. You're doing great, by the way. At the normal life thing. I'm proud of you. Dante pulled her close, pancakes forgotten. I couldn't have done it without you. You know that, right? Every time I wanted to go back to old patterns, old solutions, you were there reminding me there was another way. We saved each other, Mia corrected. You reminded me I was allowed to want more than survival. That I deserved rest and love and a life beyond sacrifice. They ate breakfast together, talking about their day. Dante had meetings about the Brooklyn project. Mia had classes and then her shift at Benny's. Normal, domestic, beautifully ordinary. Exactly what they'd both been searching for without knowing it. That evening, Lily arrived with James. A tall, earnest young man with glasses and an obvious anxiety about meeting Mia and Dante. You must be James, Dante said, shaking his hand with just enough firmness to be intimidating. Lily's told us nothing about you, which means you're either very boring or she's protecting you from us. Dante, Mia warned. What? I'm being friendly. James laughed nervously. It's fine. I'd be suspicious too if I were you. Lily's amazing, and I'm just a guy who spends too much time in a lab. A guy who's going to help develop new cancer treatments, Lily interjected, pride evident in her voice. He's being modest. They settled in the living room. The same space where Mia had first seen Dante breaking down after she'd left. Now it was filled with warmth and laughter, with Lily's textbooks scattered on one end table and Mia's poetry collections on another. A home built from broken pieces. Over dinner, lasagna, made from Sophia's recipe, perfectly executed this time. They talked and laughed. James gradually relaxed as he realized Dante wasn't actually planning to interrogate him. Lily glowed with happiness, her hand occasionally finding James's under the table. Watching her sister so happy, so free from the weight that had defined their lives for 3 years, Mia felt tears prick her eyes. You okay? Dante whispered, his hand finding hers. Yeah, just look at her. She's exactly what Mom and Dad hoped she'd be. Brilliant and happy and surrounded by people who love her. Mia squeezed his hand. We did it. We actually did it. You did it. I just helped with the last part. No, we did it together. That's how we do everything now. After dinner, they took coffee onto the balcony. All four of them, wrapped in blankets against the October chill. The city spread out below them, millions of lights representing millions of lives. Somewhere down there, people were struggling like Mia had struggled. Somewhere, people were clawing their way towards something better. And up here, in this moment, for people who'd found their way through darkness, held coffee cups and told stories and built memories. I have something to tell you, Lily said suddenly, nervousness creeping into her voice. James and I, we're getting married. Mia nearly dropped her coffee. What? When? How long have you been engaged? 3 days. And before you panic, we're not getting married until after I graduate. We're talking about a summer wedding, maybe outdoors, something small. Lily looked at Mia with eyes that held both joy and fear. Say something, please. Mia set down her coffee and pulled her sister into a fierce hug. I'm so happy for you. So happy. He better treat you right, or I'll have him disappeared by my non-existent criminal contacts. Dante supplied helpfully. I was going to say kill him myself, but your way works too. They all laughed, and James looked relieved. I promise to treat her like the incredible person she is, and to never give you a reason to consider murder. Smart man, Dante said approvingly. After Lily and James left, promising to come back for wedding planning soon, Mia and Dante cleaned up together in comfortable silence. You know what today is? Mia asked as they loaded the dishwasher. October 15th, the anniversary of my parents' death, and the anniversary of the night we met. She turned to face him. 3 years ago, I lost everything. 1 year ago, I almost lost you. And today, my sister got engaged, I'm finishing my degree, and I'm standing in a kitchen with the man I love, doing dishes and feeling happier than I ever thought possible. Dante dried his hands and pulled her close. Life is strange like that. How the worst days and the best days can share the same date. How the moment you think you're losing everything can be the moment before everything changes. Is that your philosophical way of saying you're glad your car almost hit me? I'm saying I'm glad fate, or bad weather, or whatever cosmic force controls these things, put you in my path that night. Even if it took us a year of mistakes and pain and learning to get here. Mia rested her head against his chest, listening to his heartbeat. Steady. Real. Home. I want to show you something, Dante said suddenly. Wait here. He disappeared into the bedroom and returned with a small box. Not a ring box, something different. He handed it to her, and Mia opened it carefully. Inside was a key. Not to his penthouse, she already had that. This was older, more worn. It's the key to the garden, Dante explained. The one in Brooklyn where I took you, where my mother used to take me. His voice was soft, vulnerable in the way it only was when they were alone. I've decided to expand it, make it a real community garden. Somewhere people can come and remember that the world can be beautiful. I'm calling it Sophia's Garden, after my mother. Tears blurred Mia's vision. Dante, that's perfect. I want you to help me plan it. Choose what we plant, how we set it up, who we hire to maintain it. I want it to be ours. A place we build together. He cupped her face. Like this life we're building. Like the future I hope we're building. The future. Mia's heart was racing now. Dante took a breath, and suddenly he was the nervous one. I know we said we'd take things slow. And we have. It's been a year, which is practically glacial by the standards of people who fall in love after a car accident. But Mia, I'm done going slow. I'm done pretending I don't know exactly what I want. He got down on one knee. Mia's hands flew to her mouth. I don't have a ring yet. I wanted to ask you first, let you choose what you wanted instead of assuming. But I couldn't wait another day. His eyes were wet. Mia Chun, you saved my life. Not by fixing me. By believing I could fix myself. By standing beside me while I became someone worthy of you. You turned my house into a home and my existence into a life. You make me want to be better every single day. Dante, let me finish. Please. He smiled through tears. I want to wake up next to you every morning for the rest of my life. I want to burn pancakes and learn your mother's recipes and build gardens that honor the people we've lost. I want to watch your sister get married and be there when you graduate and build a future that looks nothing like our pasts. I want everything with you, Mia. The ordinary and the extraordinary. The easy and the hard. All of it. He pulled out his mother's bracelet. The one Mia had seen in the photograph in his penthouse. The one Sophia had been wearing the day she died. This was hers. The only thing I have left of her. And I want you to have it. Not as a ring. We'll get that together. But as a promise. That I'm choosing you. That I'll keep choosing you. Every single day for the rest of our lives. Mia was sobbing now, nodding before he even asked the question. Will you marry me? Yes, she gasped. Yes, yes, 1,000 times yes. Dante stood and kissed her, and they were both crying and laughing and holding each other like they'd never let go. He fastened the bracelet around her wrist, delicate silver with a small charm in the shape of a cherry blossom. I want to do with you what spring does with the cherry trees, Mia quoted through tears, remembering the Neruda poem she'd recited at the lake. Exactly, Dante murmured. You made me bloom after the longest winter. Let me spend the rest of my life making you bloom too. They stood there in their kitchen. The same kitchen where they'd made lasagna and fallen in love, where they'd learned each other's rhythms and built something real, and held each other as the city lights twinkled below. Two broken people who'd collided in the rain. Two survivors who'd learned that love wasn't about fixing each other, but about choosing each other. Every day. Through the fear and the mistakes and the growth. Two souls who'd found home in each other. I love you, Mia whispered. I love you more, Dante replied. Impossible. Wanna bet? She laughed and kissed him again, tasting salt and joy and promise. Outside, October rain began to fall. Gentle this time, cleansing rather than punishing. And in the reflection of the window, Mia could almost see them. The exhausted waitress and the dangerous man who'd met on a rain-soaked corner 1 year ago. Who'd chosen each other despite every reason not to. Who'd built something beautiful from broken pieces. Who'd learned that the moment you think you're losing everything can be the moment before everything changes. And sometimes, if you're brave enough to stay, those changes look exactly like love. So here's my question for you. What's a moment in your life that felt like an ending but turned out to be a beginning? Sometimes our biggest transformations come from our hardest moments. Share your story below. I'd love to hear it.